You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So, let's be friends. Wow, what an event. I was not emotionally ready for the events or the ramifications of the Dutch Grand Prix. There was a lot of drama, there was crashes, and it was a race that often threatened to dissolve and peter out into a dull one-stopper, but it kicked and it fought and it resisted until it beat entertainment into submission. I was not expecting to end this race thinking about Piastri and how near he is to taking that title. And I'm now leaving this looking at the maths and saying suddenly Lando Norris needs to win 7 of the 9 remaining races. He now needs miracles. He needs the F1 gods to smile upon him. They abandoned him, and he must now sacrifice his favourite caps or something. But yeah, everything now needs to go Norris's way. He has 9 cup finals ahead of him, and he needs to basically win them all. So coming up, we'll discuss how would that race have played out without the Mercedes smoke show? How Ferrari somehow managed to lose Monza a full week before their home GP? Is it really a surprise to see Hadjar on the podium? And why is Red Bull, with a 4-time world champion, roughly about the same pace as a rookie in a Toro Rosso? We'll also ask if Sainz deserved that penalty, and is hiring a non-Hadjar rookie looking increasingly risky? We are an independent podcast produced in the podcasting shed with the kind support of our patrons and partners. We aim to bring you a race review before your Monday morning commute. We might be wrong, but we're first. I have a habit of being joined by Matt Trumpets, and here he is.
Cool down room. What about a cool down dune? That's what I say. Or actually, that's what Tom said in the chat. But I just stole it because it sounded funny.
Stealing things is tight. No, it was really interesting to see the dynamic. Hadjar's in that cool down room, and I thought, is he going to play it cool? He's in with the cool kids now. Does he know? He's grown up in an era where that cool down room is on TV, so maybe a little bit more conscious than the other guys, but it was quite a muted cool down room.
I blame the replays. I think they showed terrible replays because they always show the replays and everyone's like, oh, how'd you do that? Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. And they just showed like random replays and they showed maybe Max having a little issue. And you could tell, like, I hats off to Hadjar. He knew it was dying. And so he just started talking about how he drove defensively and got everybody started. So
oh my God.
Actually, that was like pretty cool thinking on his part.
You know, when you're in a pub and you've just got that social pressure where there's a couple of other people, you don't know them that well and the conversation isn't flowing and you feel obliged to carry it on. But imagine that, but with 1 billion people watching.
Yeah. But Hadjar, cool down room, more of that, please.
We're also joined by a Dutch lecturer and MotoGP connoisseur. It's Jules Sagers. Hello, Jules.
Hi, guys. Let's talk about a race with not many possibilities for overtaking.
Yes.
And drivers that tried it kind of made the race interesting.
Well, this is the thing, that all the teams had a real good go. And Zandvoort itself as a track, I admire what they tried to do. But really, on paper, this is a race that should be boring, not much happening. But because everyone just gave it everything and just a sprinkling of Dutch magic, you turned the windmills on correctly to face the track, and that sent a little bit of rain there, just enough.
It was just enough. I think everybody hoped for more because, let's be fair, the races next year is on for the last time. And that's not because it's turned out to be a great racetrack for Formula One.
Yeah.
But it was just enough tension that the chance of rain brought to spark things up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there was certainly that rain risk hanging over everyone, and I think you saw the Red Bulls put the soft tyre on to go, well, if it rains early, then we have gambled on a good tyre and we can get it off it nice and quickly. So that it did add an extra element, and the fact that the soft tyre was on Verstappen meant that he could go and just bully Lando Norris a little bit. And I love the fact that Verstappen seems to really have it in for Norris a little bit and can do just enough to try and mess with him. But the main focus, obviously, of today's race, aside from all the crashes, and I desperately want to talk about whose fault stuff is the McLaren battle. And in a way, now, in a completely unexpected way, the pressure is off both of them, because Piastri will be looking at that. And despite David Croft's Sky commentary insisting that, Piastri won't be happy with seeing Norris on the side, he'll be very unsatisfied, I can absolutely guarantee Piastri would have looked at Norris's stricken car and gone, well, that helps. Like, Matt, in sport, you take that. You're not going to wish your opponent to crash, but if your opponent that had a 40-second lead off you suddenly has a bit of an off and he's fine and he's not injured, you do go, okay, good, because that's happened to me before.
Oh, you always think that. You're always delighted to be the recipient of somebody else's misfortune when you're in a competitive sport where you're judged entirely on your results. But I agree. He probably secretly was, if not delighted, at least relieved. Although I don't think he was too much worried about this particular race. It just makes the whole championship thing easier. It makes the relationship between them easier. It's going to be a miracle for Norris or a doesn't finish for him to bring it back.
Yeah.
But Crofty was wrong. He's going to say he's sad to see it for the sake of the team, but in his head he's giggling like a 6-year-old.
So he'll do that in the helmet, then press the button and be like, oh yeah, no, guys, yeah, no, oh no, that's not the way. Oh, that's not the way anyone wants to win it. And I say, like, there's loads of sports where, you're not supposed to celebrate or clap an opponent's mistake or misfortune, but sport is in large part not making mistakes, and it's in large part not getting that misfortune. So if you get a bye at Wimbledon because your opponent sprains their ankle, that's not something that was your opponent's fault, but you will take that bye.
Since it's the Dutch Grand Prix, I will share this word of wisdom from my soccer, you're a football coach, when I was but a wee lad. He was Dutch, and he said, I'd rather have a player that's lucky than good. And that's exactly what Piastri was today, both.
But yeah, in the chat here, Mark is saying that Webber did an interview saying how relaxed the Piastri camp are. And in fact, I think Norris can be relaxed as well now. Once he gets over this and he goes, well, that's terrible. His race engineer did a great job coming on the radio and saying, like, you were fast. You did everything, you could do. And really, like, he's had every pole from Spain, after Spain. He had every single pole up until today. And he can look at that and he goes, well, we were pretty even. And Piastri got a little bit of a toe at the end. He was the faster car out of the final turn. And then Piastri got a little bit of a toe. So you go, in a qualifying session where wind was playing a lot of factors and it was such fine margins, you kind of go, I haven't really done an awful lot wrong. The only race he's lost since Spain was Spa, where notoriously, if you qualify on pole, you get punished by getting overtaken into Le Combe. And so his race engineer was going, look, you were fast, you've done all the things, yet this completely random thing, which could happen to any driver, which could have happened to Piastri. This could have been Piastri's engine that blew today. This is just the roll of the dice in sport. When he recovers and walks away from this, I think he'll go into it going, well, the luck didn't go my way. So either it happens to Piastri as well at some point and the luck evens out, or it's out of my hands and there's nothing I could do. I think if I was approaching it this now as Norris, I would say, okay, kind of pretend that didn't happen. Pretend I finished P2 like I was probably going to, and then just see if anything happens. But I stand by it. I think he's now got to win the next 5 or 6 races, Jules. Otherwise, this title could feel over quickly. I think if Piastri wins 2 more races, it's going to feel over for him.
Yeah, but to be honest, I don't really get why a lot of people are already in the this title fight is over zone, because Norris has had 2 DNFs this season, and he spent a lot of time since Canada to chip away from the lead that Piastri had since then, and he did that quite well, to be honest. I think he rebounded from that with I think was 3 or 4 wins in 4 or 5 races, just from the top of my head. So anything like this can happen to Piastri, just like you said. And there's still enough races for that to maybe happen. So if Norris comes back from this like he did from his Canada DNF and starts to chip away some of the points, then all he needs is one DNF by Piastri. And if it was like 4 or 3 races left, I'd be in that zone as well. But I think we still have a long way to go. A lot of overseas races as well.
So when Hamilton had that 2016 engine failure in Malaysia, was there 4 races to go at that point? It was less, wasn't it? Because I distinctly remember that Rosberg only had to finish second for like the last 4 or 5 races. So Piastri isn't quite in that zone yet. The reason I'm talking about being over, which is so weird, from it's completely all in the open to now 1 race into the summer break going, I think it's over, is because I do not think any other team has the pace to get in between the McLarens and make things difficult. So it is going to be an act of God or an act of Mercedes power unit. Is probably the only thing that can save Norris from this equation, which is he has 9 races left. I don't acknowledge the sprint races. He has 9 races left and he can only gain 7 points in each of those races. That's why I'm saying it feels over now, because if Piastri wins 2 of them, he's got a hand on the cup.
Yeah, and of course that's the case. I just quickly looked it up, and Malaysia 2016 was 5 races left.
There we go.
So,
yeah.
But I remember that really felt like, oh, this is it. This he's never going to recover from this. Because back then, the Mercedes were way ahead as well, just like the McLarens now. It's just that, I don't know. Let's 9 races. Okay. Maybe I sound like a grandpa right now, but back in the day, that was half a season. So, let's
a lot can happen in 9 races. That's what
a lot can happen in 9 races. But let's just hope at least for some kind of comeback to take this championship. I mean, it's not been the greatest of recent years, so let's at least hope for something that brings us to the final phase of the season with some tension.
The most common thing I'm seeing is about this championship is it's not Prost Senna. Like, so many people have gone, well, it's not Prost Senna, is it? It certainly doesn't seem to have the same needle as the Rosberg Hamilton championships as well. But it is a championship. Whoever wins this will be world champion, and it could be the last chance that either of these 2 drivers get. And whoever ends up winning, the loser will know this was a winnable championship for me. So, Matt, look, all I can think is no one's going to catch up with these guys. I'm fully going on the presumption that it's going to be McLaren 1-2s, barring mechanical issues, from here until Abu Dhabi.
I think if you were going to make a bet, that is probably the safest bet you could make. And, there's a difference between a championship being mathematically over and sort of being actually over. The momentum has entirely swung Piastri's way here. And I think Norris acknowledges it. I think Oscar acknowledges it. And the thing about it is it's going to be such a relief to the both of them. I'm not sure either of them want the circumstances to occur where they're close again. Yeah, you want to win, but oh my gosh, right back into that pressure cooker.
Yeah, exactly. So Norris could take this as like, well, that's fate for you, and then turn up at Monza going, it's basically over. So now let's go racing. And maybe if I can get in the championship and get within 18 points, I can kind of go, well, it was that engine blow up.
The bad news is there's not a noble sacrifice for him to make here. Be like, well, I was behind because of the engine failure and I sacrificed my chances to make sure my teammate won. That's not really in play here. That would have been perfect for the writers of the F1 script. But
Yeah. Okay, so let's be clear here on the championship maths. I think, according to Pete here, the gap was 9 points before this race. So had Norris been able to overtake Piastri, and my goodness, the race did rob us of the chance of actually seeing Norris go and have a shot. And had there not been any more safety cars, had there just been from the second stop, from the first stop onto hards, with the McLarens both pushing, because they both suddenly lit up the timing screens, and you go, right, this is fully game on. I now want to see what happens to these two over 50 laps. And there did appear to be some tyre wear on the mediums at the beginning of the race in that first stint from both. I think there was a slight gap. So I think we saw Piastri just go over the edge, maybe 4 or 5 laps before Norris also then said, yeah, my rears are going. So I really wanted to see how that was going to play out over 50 laps on the hard tyre. We got robbed of that. But let's say, had Lando Norris managed to get ahead, that would have closed it into 2 points. I don't think that's the most likely scenario. My colleagues here can argue with me. Had he just cruised in second place, then we're talking of a gap of 26, yeah? But now we've got another 18 points on top of that. 26 plus 18 is...
it's 34 points between them right now, according to the championship chart. How about that?
Yeah, he's reading my notes. I wrote in there 34 points. So how many lots of 7 is that? That's 5 lots of 7. So he could win the next 5 races and then he'd be a point ahead.
Or Piastri could take the next 4.5 races off, barring sprint weekends, and still be ahead. So yeah, there's a lot of room for.
No, because he'd have to finish second, wouldn't he, to pick up?
He'd have to finish second. Yeah. But, well, maybe for Oscar that is taking the race.
Yeah, he could cruise home. So I would like to discuss like how that race was going before the blow up, Matt. And so, what do you think of my assertion here? Is that I think Norris might have had a good go. Maybe Piastri's rears might have gone a little earlier, but it was probably too big an ask on this track.
I would fundamentally agree because I saw a Norris interview post-race where he said the delta needed to overtake was 0.8 of a second. And I would politely suggest that nothing was going to be done that was going to give Norris 0.8 of a second over Oscar, even if he might have been, in theoretical terms, slightly faster over a lap in race trim.
Oh, okay. Well, that was easier.
Sorry, I mean that was
easier than I thought.
Response,
easier than I thought.
Yeah. I mean, normally I like to try and create some drama, but this is kind of the nature of this whole race, though. It's sort of at large. This was potentially the most boring race of the year, and yet somehow it really wasn't at all. And just oh man, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
So fine. I'm happy with that. And I'm happy to also say Norris probably didn't do too much wrong in qualifying. It looked like they were both really close and they were all over it. And that's just the way it turns out sometimes. But Jules, the accusation, and I think a lot of this is Max Verstappen related, is that Lando Norris just can't do lap ones. And we see it over and over again, losing out on lap 1.
Yeah, it seems that quite a few times already, even in this season particularly, his opening laps aren't what you expect it to be if you see his qualifying positions. And this time again, it almost felt like, oh yeah, of course, not even a surprise anymore when Verstappen overtook him. And of course, it was a ballsy move. I think Verstappen afterwards said that he tried to send it when he almost lost the rear, and that gave me the impression that he was actually targeting maybe both McLaren.
Try and take him out, Hungary 2021 style. Maybe that's what he was going for.
So I think he might have been saying to himself he was a bit lucky that he didn't lose the car there and maybe take out one or both championship contenders. But anyway. The thing for Norris is in nowadays Formula One, the opening lap, and especially if you continue to put your car on the front row, the opening lap is so important. And especially on a track like this with overtaking nearly impossible. And then if you squander your great qualifying position, it just must mentally become a thing as well, like the here I go again thing. So I was actually surprised the way he got P2 back from Verstappen.
Yeah, in a way, it's a shame because nothing that happened before his engine shut down mattered at all. Like, if you are going to watch that back with the spoiler, knowing what happened, everything is sadder and even more irrelevant. But yeah, so that still did cost him time and it still put him on the back foot. And I just feel like Norris is always doing things the hard way. And we've seen it play out now for the second championship in a row. And even without that engine blow up, he'd be leaving today, most likely some 26 points behind. Hang on, how's my maths? 9 plus 18, 27. No, 27. No, 26. Jeez. Sorry, that internet shutdown really hurt me, Matt. Help me with maths. 9 plus 18, 27. Thank you. He'd be 27 points behind. He would still be walking away going, oh, I really did things the hard way here. And a lot of the inability, or the fact that he definitely probably wouldn't have caught up with Piastri, is the fact that he then once again had to make up places to get into second place to even try. So every time he catches up to Piastri, has to make up this lead, he's already given Piastri a massive tyre advantage. And that's the one thing that he's probably got over Piastri, is this ability to extend his tyres a little bit, have a little bit more performance towards the end of a stint. Yet every time, Jules, because he's made it hard for himself, by the time he gets there, Piastri can manage it.
Yeah, that's exactly what we saw today as well. Because when he overtook Verstappen, in a really, really good way, I thought. And you can see him chipping away from Piastri's lead, and you think like, oh, at this rate, with this overspeed, we have a fight in a couple of laps. And then he got to 1.2, and it was almost like the timing was stuck, but it remained 1.2 seconds. So indeed, Piastri just he allows Norris to get closer, but then he is, and I think we saw that this season particularly, he has mastered the managing of a gap and the managing of his pace to just stay clear from things getting really heated.
The live chat saved me. It's 16. Of course it's 16. That's why I was getting confused. So if you hadn't picked this up from the audio, we had a full hardware shutdown. And so I'm sitting here trying to revitalize everything, and my maths failed me completely. But yeah, we're on a roll, and Matt is going to say things.
I'm going to say things, and they might even be relevant this time. You know, if I try enough, eventually I'll get there. Does it seem to anybody else, when it comes to Norris, he seems to be particularly happy just to let that car go and pass them 6 or 8 laps down the road?
Yeah.
And in this case, you're right. It was about 4.5 seconds. He lost in 8 laps behind Verstappen. And even though he managed to close that down to about 3 seconds, he was done at that point. He had missed his opportunity to maybe provoke Piastri into overusing his tires and perhaps being a little bit vulnerable trying to get to the one-stop lap point, which wouldn't have happened anyway because of Hamilton. But, you know, theoretically, that was his best chance. And instead, he lost time. And I don't know if it's a Max thing or if it's a Lando thing.
I still have this feeling that when Max sees Norris in front of him, he fights a little bit harder. Now, whether that's because there's some great rivalry or because that's the kind of thing you will do to your mates, because like, oh, that's him. I know I can stick it in there and we can fight a bit more. But he definitely seems to, even if he knows, right, his race is over, he seems to be really fighting Norris. Now, I don't think it benefited Verstappen in any way to make that really risky move around the outside of turn 2. How much did he really believe that he was in that race against the McLarens? I think a lot of other drivers would have just let the McLarens go. But yeah, just on that, how much of a difference did it make? He obviously will have used extra tyre life to hunt down, to be in the wash. And it might not have been much, but once he got past Verstappen, he then has to use more tyre life to then close the gap, which he did. Now, bear in mind, both of these guys were driving at around 1 minute 15s, right? And that's the pace that they go, right, I can do this for 20 laps and this will be a good stint. Of course, they could all go, right, let's do another second faster, but then they risk dropping off the cliff. The interesting point was that Piastri's favoured pace, where he probably felt like he wasn't wearing the tyre too much, did slide backwards a little bit, more towards the middle of the 115s, whereas Norris's didn't, for a bunch of laps afterwards, where then he started complaining about the rears. Now, if he didn't drop back behind Verstappen, if he wasn't in Verstappen's dirty air, if he didn't have to overtake Verstappen and then close a gap, maybe there's that crucial difference where he can then push on. And then Piastri does have to stay out of the DRS. And then we see if his rears go. But because he insists on doing everything the hard way from his starts, Matt, is that a good tyre analysis?
Yeah, it is a very good tire analysis. Essentially, Norris's best chance was to provoke Piastri into overheating his rear tires before they got to lap 28 was sort of the set point for a one-stop race. And that's very clearly what all the teams preferred to do today. The boring thing, but winning thing. And being stuck behind Verstappen like that completely robbed him of the opportunity to do that. The other thing is, Verstappen having that soft tire on and intending to take Piastri out and in the sense of get ahead of him, it showed like Red Bull very clearly thought that they weren't nearly as fast as the McLarens and nobody else was nearly as fast as them. They weren't worried about people from behind. They were only worried about trying. And Max was in such a head. He was like, you know what? It's my home race. Win it or bin it. Here we go. First lap. We'll see what happens. And he just avoided the bin part and wound up getting almost to the win, except for Piastri's car also didn't fail.
Well, it's not like the Dutch, is it, Jules, to do win or bin? My sole representation of Dutch people, apart from you, is Max Verstappen, Jos Verstappen, and the Max Verstappen fans that DM and email me.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, your question is it the Dutch way to win it or bin it? Well, if you go from Max, yeah, I think he has shown that over the years, but I think this season shows him fairly. I don't know if complacent is the right word, but he seems to be very much at peace with his situation. Then he he accepts that his car is what it is, and it almost feels like that he is hoping for something better next season for the new regs. But I can't escape the idea that he's playing with several scenarios from that season on, depending on the powers that be in those new regulations next year.
And the politics and the other driver's seats. So as a not Max fan, one of the things that I would be able to say is well, what about when he's not winning suddenly? When he stops winning, how's he going to be then? How's he going to react to those situations? And the answer is really well. Like really, really well. He's just maximizing whatever he can do with that package, in stark contrast to, say, Lewis Hamilton, who we've seen tinkering and probably holding back teams' ability to develop the car because they haven't got a steady platform of seeing what he can do week in, week out. Because instead of going, well, this car is probably a P4 car this weekend, he's going, yeah, but what if we hang gerbils either side of the wings? Maybe that will give us this extra thing. And I think he was doing the same thing at Ferrari, and Fred Vasseur made this comment saying, Lewis Hamilton, he's very demanding. And I think this probably for Lewis Hamilton fans is what we've been complaining about. So how come the car kind of looks good on Friday and then it gets worse? Well, it's because it looks good on Friday, but not like a race-winning car. So then, let's try everything. Let's try all these things. And then suddenly it looks off on Saturday. I don't think Max Verstappen does that. I think Max Verstappen is looking at, say, the race this weekend and says, well, the McLarens are gone. How can we do the best with this car? So sadly for me, as a quote-unquote Verstappen hater, he's also excellent in this regard.
I think I've heard Max complain about his car plenty of times. I think all drivers do this to a certain extent. But what I want to say is maybe I misspoke. Maybe what I should have said is Max would rather have crashed in the opening lap than have spent 72 laps driving around by himself on a track. I think that's probably fair for everybody. And I don't know, the Lewis thing, he seemed pretty happy with the car till he crashed it. And if he'd not crashed it, I think he'd have been a lot happier this weekend. He is demanding because he knows what he needs to win with. I think the problem is he's never going to get it under this regulation set.
Yeah, slight detour to Hamilton then, because we'll go back to Ferrari. He did say, I've changed my approach. And I can't shake that feeling that the approach is stop messing around with everything. Have long-term development, but you're not an engineer, and it's not your job to deliver the best race car. Your job is to drive the race car that has been delivered. And suddenly he did look comfortably on pace with Leclerc. He didn't look at sea. So I'm hoping that this is a settling in period where then you can go, okay, right, drive the car that you've got and match Leclerc and show what you can do. That will then give the engineers confidence to build towards you and build with you for 2026. But yeah, we'll go back to Verstappen and Red Bull for the minute. And when I say Red Bull, I do mean the family Red Bull. And no, Samantha, those gerbils would not have survived the war. No. Well, one of them would. The right-hand gerbil, his family is in mourning, but the left-hand gerbil, she's fine. So, no, the Red Bull family with VCARB was Toro Rosso, and also you've got these three entities now. So you've got the Toro Rosso cars, you've got Verstappen in his good car, and then you've got the second Red Bull, which we now know is not only an iteration or two behind, because they don't get the new upgrade part when it comes out. They don't get it when the second one comes out, because that's the spare for Verstappen. Not only that, but you're basically getting these parts when Verstappen is done with them. That doesn't mean you're getting exactly the same car as Verstappen had 4 or 5 races ago. You're just getting a hodgepodge of whatever parts are available. So you might have the third iteration front wing, but the second iteration floor. Yeah. So we now know that that's almost a third tier in the Red Bull family. But what we had this weekend was Max Verstappen basically being around the same pace as Hadjar in a Toro Rosso. Can anybody illuminate me on why that was the case? Is Hadjar the next coming of Verstappen? Is he Verstappen plus? Is the Red Bull so bad that it's actually slower than the Racing Bull? And Karun Chandok on Sky's comment that, I'd love to see Max in that car, as if that meant Max would have done even better than Hadjar. I think there's an opposite question, which is, I'd love to see Hadjar in the number 1 Red Bull and see what he can do in that.
I don't think Hadjar would like to see himself in the number 1 Red Bull.
The number 2 Red Bull.
He wants to stay as far away from that family of cars as possible. My explanation is simple. I think for Hadjar, we have to look behind him to see the job he did defending against Leclerc and Russell. And he genuinely was in a car that was just fast enough to hang on defensively to 4th. I don't think Max was really under a serious threat, but you can't forget the 2 safety cars and a virtual safety car kind of compressing the distances between the car in terms of how close they are.
I did forget that, but I don't think you needed to show me up over that. I don't think you needed to go Orlando Norris telling off his race engineer over that.
You should have told me about the wet paint sooner, Mom. I could have hurt myself.
This is Lando Norris showing some leadership and telling off his race engineer for not giving him information of why Hamilton went off. Or was it that paint is slippy in the wet? I think his engineer would have been justified to go, Lando, the paint's always slippy in the wet, mate. Just sorry, I thought you knew wheel.
I will give a shout out, however, to Lawson's race engineer, who saved his bacon in the Antonelli Leclerc crash, because he was right behind it, and the engineer yelled double yells at him, and he's like, thanks, I didn't see that. You totally saved me. So sometimes the race engineer does need to give that information.
Fine. So the correct point that I derailed there was that perhaps that gap was flattered by the safety cars and Max kind of knowing that he was in third.
But I don't think I think it's possible to say enough good things about Hadjar and his performance in that car and how well the car wound up going at this particular track. If there's a track that suits the RB, it very clearly looks a lot like the one at Zandvoort, where you need a high delta to overtake, and it's not got very many slow speed turns.
And also, Hadjar's car remained Carlos Sainz free, which probably gave it an advantage as well. Is this the first opportunity we've got? Should we do it? Is that we do it?
Yeah.
We play
Why
the
not? I can't wait to be wrong for the first time after the summer break.
So I'm glad about this first whose fault it is, because I know that we disagree.
Whose fault is it?
Well, we disagree about some things. I don't think we disagree ultimately about whose fault it is. So there was an incident on lap something where Carlos Sainz tried to go around the outside of turn 1 of Liam Lawson, and then Lawson went to the outside of the corner, and there was a big contact there which put both of them just about a lap down. So Jules, whose fault was it?
It was lap 29.
I said that.
Yeah, and I vote Carlos Sainz fully at fault.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, and Matt, you're also saying Carlos Sainz?
No, actually, okay. I'm blaming the stewards for this.
Right. So I'm specifically not blaming the stewards. So my take on it is that it's Lawson's fault, but the stewards made the right decision. Jules, you're saying it was Carlos Sainz's fault from a racing point of view, and the stewards also made the correct decision. Yeah? And Matt is saying that it was Lawson's fault and the stewards made the wrong decision.
Correct.
Gee, we're all over the place here then. Let's start with Jules then.
Listen, at first,
you were
during
afraid,
the race,
you were petrified. Yeah, go on.
I was. And then when the penalty was called, my initial reaction was also like, what? How? I mean, if anyone was going to get a penalty, surely it was Lawson. But I was also influenced by Sainz's radio message by then. So then after the race, when I watched the replay, I thought, but wait a minute, Carlos, where are you going into that turn one? And going into that turn one, or being almost halfway, he was barely past Lawson's rear wheel. And then I thought, wait a minute, this isn't as convincing as I thought it was. And then when you look the replay further, you see that indeed Lawson steers away, or at least his car understeers. And I must admit this, I don't really know if his car literally understeers or if it was a steering movement. But even then, he was fully in his right to defend his position because Carlos wasn't even halfway next to him. But also, Carlos had a lot of space on the left of him, further upwards in the bank corner to relieve himself from any risk of Lawson making a move or understeering. So he had a lot of room left to clear himself away. So seeing that he wasn't matching Lawson's front wheel.
No, not even close.
Not even close. He had space enough to avoid it. And then I thought, yeah, I can't understand the stewards. 10 seconds feels harsh, but yeah, I understand them.
Okay. I'll just do a counter to one of those points and then go to Matt, which is that, yes, Carlos Sainz wasn't alongside. So the racing rules, for those of you who need reminding, is if you're on the inside and you have your front axle past the mirror,
but at least alongside the mirror per the February 20 guidelines.
Then you don't have to leave any room. If you're overtaking, then you're entitled to room. You sort of own the corner, if you like. If you're on the outside, though, you have to have your front axle ahead of the front axle of the car on the inside. That might work quite well for your standard corner where both cars are always going to go for the apex and where it's harder to go side by side. But this corner turn one, Tarzan, is known for you being able to overtake around the outside. Now, you saw Lando Norris do that great overtake around the outside of Max Verstappen, and Verstappen sort of just raced normally, left racing room. I don't know if he was feeling well or if there was, he had a bug in his eye or something, but he left the racing room. And I feel like that's fair and that's how racing should be. You should have to leave room. You shouldn't be able to go into a space where a car exists. So the racing rules might kind of broadly work for your average 90-degree turn or going into turn 3 at Silverstone into the village complex. But a turn like this where you can go fast around the outside, therefore you can come from further back. So Lando Norris was nowhere near like alongside Verstappen. He came from a long way back and he was able to make up the pace because it's like a Skeletric track, like a slot car. Because you had the outside lane, you could press your finger further down on the trigger. So those racing rules basically negate Tarzan as a corner altogether. So I'm just saying that I don't blame Carlos Sainz. I feel like Carlos Sainz was going for a perfectly racy move, which brings us to Matt's position, which was that
they were wrong on the guidelines, and they were wrong because they are guidelines. These aren't hard and fast rules. And I do feel the need to point out that right at the top, they say many incidents require subjective judgment. And so these are my points in order. 1, his front axle might not have been alongside or ahead of Lawson. But if you watch back the video, you can very clearly see Lawson looking into his mirror and seeing that Sainz is there and an overtake attempt has been made. Secondly, he got pretty close. I'm not sure exactly where the apex is because I was looking at onboards, but he got reasonably close to where you were supposed to be. So my first thing about these regulations is very obviously there needs to be a bit of a sliding scale here. If someone, even if on exit, I'm entitled to take the full width of the track, I'm not immediately entitled to just drive left into where that person is and expect them to suddenly not be there. Now, you're saying that it was a snap. Well, if it's a snap or an understeer, well, I've driven into the corner too fast, haven't I?
Yep.
And that does make it a driver fault. And
Yep.
you can see Sainz actually reacting to his change when he opens up his wheel. Sainz reacts to that with his wheel. So I see a lot here to say that, you could easily argue it's just a racing incident, but what fun is that? There's a lot to say. I don't think the regulations are being applied in the manner in which they were intended to be, in the spirit of good racing between drivers. And I think there's at least reasonable evidence Lawson just, got it a little bit wrong and wound up banging into Sainz.
I think under any other rule set in karting, sim racing, GT series, I think you're going around that hairpin there. Someone's making a challenge around the outside, doing the brave thing, doing the wall of death around the outside, and the inside car just goes, nah. And just, everybody would say that inside car just wrecked that outside car. And I hate it. And I hate it. And I think most people looked at this and went, huh? Very clearly, Liam Lawson just nerfed Carlos Sainz, and the stewards were bound to this set of quote-unquote guidelines to make the correct decision. I think they made the correct decision under the stupid rules. And apparently Carlos Sainz, well, you heard him on the radio demanding, I'm going to speak to the stewards. I'm going to go in there. I shall pull them by their hair until they submit to my will. And apparently, according to Carlos Sainz, they said, no, we won't speak to you.
Yeah, I saw someone speculate that was because they were still busy deciding the Leclerc-Russell issue that they should have decided during the race. However, it was very much a I would like to speak to your manager moment for Carlos on the radio. And so I did appreciate the drama.
So does that mean we should move on to the Leclerc-Russell or the Leclerc-Antonelli?
Your call, boss. I think there's loads to argue about, and well, not so much on the Antonelli one probably, but certainly for the Leclerc-Russell one. We're once again talking about the rules, aren't we?
I think Leclerc-Russell is funny. So what I didn't see on the broadcast was what was going on before they got to the right-left chicane. So towards the end of so towards sector 3. There's a sharp right-hander and then more of a sweeping left. So it's a chicane, but it's a funny one. It really invites you to cut that corner generally. And so I think we saw in qualifying a few people getting too much wheels. I think it's gravel on the inside there. So it's a complex, it's a very interesting corner, but I think it's a difficult one to overtake on. And we saw some kind of beef in the corner before, but I don't think the broadcast showed what actually happened there. But basically, Leclerc kind of felt like, hey, I got aggrieved in this incident I haven't seen. Therefore, I'm just going to send it and I can do what I want. Appears to cut the track and just smash into George Russell. So far, I don't think we've seen anything. But then that continues down into turn 1, where again, in my opinion, it looked like Leclerc was maybe racing a little hot-headed and did maybe a naughty block on George Russell there as well. So if we're deciding whose fault it is, from what we've seen on the broadcast, I think we have 2 Leclerc's faults. Any advance? Any counter?
I mean, to me, the frustrating thing here, once again, is the guidelines, because we're talking about turn 10 and turn 11. Now, I think on the restart, what I'm remembering from the restart, and I didn't go back that far when I looked at things. What I'm remembering is I think Russell had some wheel spin. He didn't get a great start. I think he was already vulnerable as they came down that straight. I think Russell knew it, and I think Leclerc knew it. And so that's where we are. To me, Leclerc clearly had, coming between 10 and 11, he'd come alongside. He'd claimed his space and he was allowed to have it. But I think the problem with that turn complex is that it doesn't allow Russell much opportunity to give him that space once he's committed through turn 10. So this was always going, that's why you don't see a lot of people overtake there. I think that was always going to happen. But the question is, I think that we should really argue about is if Leclerc is entitled to space, is it that Russell forced him off, but he made the overtake and he was off track? Is he still entitled to keep that overtake? This is the thing that they didn't answer at all in their document. Like, to me, this is like, okay, finally we have something fun to argue about. He was off track, but he was forced off and he was entitled to space. So who is wronger in that
Is
situation?
he entitled to space? So you think he's entitled to space in the right-hander? I don't think he's far enough alongside on the outside going into the right-hander to be entitled to space. So I think Russell can push him off basically into the apex of the next corner. That's how I see it.
I'm sorry, I had the turn numbers wrong. It's 12 and 13 according to the document. So apologies. But the steward said that he was entitled. He was entitled going into 13. He'd earned the space because he took the position. Oh no, the turn 12 was
It's okay, Matt. I got the maths wrong earlier. You're allowed to flub one.
Yeah. No, I'm frustrated because I'm trying to read a document and talk at the same time, and it turns out I'm not really great at either.
No, I was a BBC radio presenter, and I was awful at it.
Okay, so you can feel my pain here. The collision, they're talking about the collision that happened after they exited turn 11.
Yeah.
So this overtake attempt happened between 10 and 11. And they're saying that he lost the position into 12 where the collision happened. And they're really being circumspect about what car 63 had been ahead at turn 11, lost the position at turn 12. And we investigated. And it was inconclusive, they say. So they don't want to settle this question of, this is like a poker hand.
Okay, that's really weak.
If you were ahead and I force you off and you make the overtake, does my poker hand of a royal flush beat your poker hand of 4 of a kind? This is what we're talking about here. What do you think?
I just want to say your Tech Time segment over the summer, the Tech Time, that episode was fantastic. So I don't think any of this should detract from how good that Tech Time was, and I think people should go and check out that episode. But I'll make it. I think I'll make my position clearer then, because I was always looking for a way for that to be George Russell's fault. But Russell came in, he was ahead at the right-hand part of that section, then took up the apex in the left-hander of that, which I think he was entitled to do. And it really, to me, it looks like there was not enough space for Leclerc to possibly have had a wheel on track at all times. I'm pretty sure he was off track at some point. And even if, say, the left wheel, the right rear was technically still on track while the front ones were off, he still cut that corner and then did not have the control of that car to not career into George Russell. It was quite an angle, and he had to be going at a speed where he's not in control to avoid that car. And I think if Russell was another half car length over, I think Leclerc's going to hit him as well. So I think he was angry from the turns before. I think he went in with a pretty thuggish attitude. And loads of people were pointing out, yeah, but it's fun. You can't restrict fun. Yeah, but then everyone's going to just drive into the side of George Russell, and that would be terrible. But the aim of the rules is to try and do punishments or do decisions that will shape the kind of racing you want. So if you don't punish Leclerc there, then that means that that move is now on, and everyone is free at Zandvoort to cut that corner and hit someone.
I feel Leclerc was not only fired up by what had happened just before between him and Russell, but he had been trailing Isaac Hadjar in the first part of the race.
Yeah.
But it was like in DRS zone, but just couldn't make the pass, just not having just that little bit of overspeed to make the pass. So that must have been frustrating because his race pace, I mean, was good enough for a podium. And we know Leclerc hasn't got that many podiums this season. So that must have been frustrating. And then Ferrari pits him, and the lap he has on his outlap, Hamilton crashes, safety car. So everybody gets that safety car pit stop except for him. So he finds himself behind Russell all of a sudden, being faster again. And I mean, it must have been some kind of frustration, piling up for him.
Yeah, well, okay, so I don't think there's too much defense, to be honest, for Leclerc, unless you want to say, well, technically, because he had a sniff of a wheel on, he's allowed to do what he did. But my question would be, what was Russell expected to do differently to avoid that? And I think Russell did everything correctly and got hit hard enough for there to be damage caused. So we don't have a decision, do we? Or is that no penalty? Is that done?
It's no penalty.
No
it's a racing
penalty.
incident. And basically they're saying Leclerc was entitled to be there when the collision happened.
Well,
it's the nature of the track that just brought them together.
In that case, I don't think they're following their own rules because Leclerc was on the outside into the right-hander, was not axle ahead of other axle and therefore was not entitled to racing room. So I have no idea why he's entitled to racing room there, but Carlos Sainz isn't entitled to racing room around turn one outside of Liam Lawson. So I think that the lack of consistency there is a poor show.
Yeah, but we never saw the aerial shot of that incident, and maybe it was never recorded from up the air. But we never saw if Leclerc left the track completely.
No, that would have been good. Yeah.
Yeah, was left rear maybe on the white line,
right
or
rear,
even yeah. And that, by the rules, whether we like them or not, would make that pass legit.
The evidence was inconclusive, say the stewards, as to whether car 16 left the track. As in, we didn't want to look too hard because we figured out what we wanted to happen in advance.
I just don't see how that's not a penalty. Sorry. But the argument I've heard is, but he didn't overtake at that point. He only overtook after having cut the corner and then hitting Russell. He was still behind. And in fact, this was on the TV commentary. They were actually debating this and saying, well, but he didn't overtake until later, so it doesn't count. The term is ABC. There are ABC boards at racetracks around the country. Advantage by contact. You can't do that. You can't drive up behind someone, punt them into the wall, and then overtake and go, oh yeah, but I didn't overtake until after I'd punted him off into the wall. I'm really, really struggling to see how this is not Leclerc's fault. I think he was a very, very lucky boy to get away with it, except he didn't. Because George Russell placed a curse on everyone that was near him today. He placed a magic spell on Lewis Hamilton because he was too far behind and he went off into the wall. He was angered by Leclerc and then miffed at having to give up his place to add insult to injury. Absolutely horrible for George Russell. Not only do you unfairly get punted into, lose your place because you got punted into, have damage because that driver hit you, and then they don't get penalised, but you lose a place and you've got damage, your team then go, because of that series of incredibly unfair things that happen to you, you also need to let your rookie teammate past you. And you go, at that point, Russell must have been, fuming. And as much as I hate all the snitching he does, technically this was moving in the... As much as I hate the way Russell does that, he didn't deserve any of that. So it was a little bit of karma and justice for him that Antonelli then, had this racing incident with Leclerc. And once again, we'll ask, whose fault was that punt, Jules? Whose fault was that torpedo from nowhere?
Yeah, I don't see any other way of blaming Antonelli for this. Leclerc was already on the outside. It almost felt like he was giving room for a possible overtake, like he kind of anticipated it, given their tire situation. And then even still, he gets touched by Antonelli with disastrous
results.
Yeah.
Can I just say, though, Antonelli didn't overtake Leclerc until after the contact. So they had the contact first, then Leclerc went off into the wall and spun around. And it was only after that Antonelli passed him. So
that's true, but it was a collision it caused.
It was a collision with Russell as well. He chewed out this big bite mark out of his floor. But yeah, Matt, this is starting to look like a bit of a trend with Antonelli of just a series of disappointing things.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my response to that was, well, rookie's gonna rookie.
Yeah.
And in the interest of trying to make the show, argumentative, like there's not really much on Antonelli's plate here, but I did sort of have just the mental image Well, in terms of defending him.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Into the collision. I'm sorry if that came across the wrong way, but I meant
like,
there's not much.
There's not much on him. Like, he didn't do much. No.
Yeah. No. There's not much to defend him with here, but it did kind of remind me, just because of the nature of the track and the line, that the natural racing line, it is sort of like leaving out a plate full of cookies and telling your 3-year-old not to eat them while you're out of the room. That is just such a nice, big, inviting, open door looking thing. And then I just imagine him steaming into the bottom of that turn and about halfway up the other side going, oh, that's what happens when you take this much speed into the bottom of this turn.
Yeah. So, I suppose the slight defense for him would be, you have seen people taking different lines. So you can't take the apex because it's flat. So that's like hitting the apron in NASCAR or Indy. You don't have the bank to help you. But you can take a slightly shallower line. You might have to give up a little speed, but you have seen cars going side by side, but usually on lap 1 or after a safety car restart, not just coming out the pits. You're both on relatively cold tyres. Let's just, give that a punt. So no, I think that is definitely on Antonelli. And I have to say Leclerc's response to it was very measured. And I initially thought that he was kicking off at Antonelli when he was saying that was unnecessary. We didn't need to do that. And if that had been in response to Antonelli, that would have been a very British response. Get punted out into the wall and go, well, that all seems a little bit unnecessary. But actually, Jules, he was talking to Ferrari about the pit stop.
Yeah, he apparently had just... his opinion was that he wouldn't have needed to pit by that point. And as we see happening with Ferrari time after time, when the drivers indicate tire still feels good, we can extend, and then the next radio message is box, and that's what happened. So that resulted in Leclerc pitting, unfortunately again, an unfortunate timing for him again, being there on not very warmed up tires. Antonelli had on softs, and that's why I felt like he was almost making room for him, like inviting him to, you will overtake me because clearly I won't be able to defend on these tires.
Victim blaming, Jules. What are you doing?
Yeah, but and that radio message kind of after the crash kind of made things worse. Like I didn't even needed to be on these tires in this track position. This all could have not happened if it wasn't for the Ferrari box call.
Right.
Again, it falls to me. My memory is they put Leclerc also on the soft tire. And I think really, if you're a Ferrari strategist, you're looking at, were we able to pass Hadjar? No. Are we at threat from Antonelli? Potentially, possibly, on a soft tire with a minimum number of laps left. Can we pit and get out in front of him on the same tire? And the answer was yes. In fact, we can. Yeah. So they did. So I don't see anything particularly wrong with it. And I'm not sure, again, not being a strategist, maybe we have someone we can ask later on. I'm not sure, not being a strategist, if you can do that calculation, like how much do we think he can gain on that soft tire for what was it, lap 53 to 72? It's 20 laps. Like what is the differential? What's the expected degradation versus what's our expected tire degradation with our rears, which let's remember in the first stint went off in 23 laps, and that was a medium hard tire. So yeah. So like I can see why they wanted to do it.
18.5 second delta on the pit stops.
16.
16 only.
That's
because they increased the speed limit.
The broadcast. Yeah.
Because they increased the minimum speed, didn't they, for the pit lane to encourage two stops, and it worked. So I like that, I think.
Yeah. I don't think you would have seen a ton of them if it had been a boring non-safety car race. But yeah, it gave you a better option for pitting and not being stuck behind all the traffic.
Do you remember a while back I was saying I missed the splash and dash? Like we hardly ever saw someone go into the softer tyre and try and do that run. So if Leclerc had stayed out, then Antonelli has to make up 16.5 seconds. So, oh gosh. So that is why Alonso, when he was grumbling and saying, "You put me in traffic, it's nothing to do with the 4 places I lost at the start." When he did that and he got his way and he got onto the hard tyre early, he made up like about 8 or 9 seconds fairly quickly getting onto the back of that train again. But that was massively helped by the fact that it was a short pit stop delta. That's it. That hadn't quite registered in my head. I still think that Antonelli would have lost a place or 2 at least. So he'd have had to overtake other cars, not just Leclerc, and make up 16 and a half seconds over 20 laps. That still feels like a lot. And that soft tyre would have gone off. You wouldn't have had that killer pace all throughout those 20 laps at all. I think Charles is right. I don't think you needed to cover that off.
That could entirely be true. It's a fun thing that I'm sure we'll hear more about.
Oh, so are we saying we know more than Ferrari strategists?
Well, in hindsight, you can certainly raise some valid questions. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. So no penalty then for Charles Leclerc, because my big fear was not only did Ferrari slightly Ferrari here at Zandvoort, but they might have already lost their home race a week ahead of their home race. And as we know, Ferrari will direct resources to Monza. They will most likely have fresh engines for Monza. They will have put more attention into their Monza spec in development-wise and wind tunnel hours than other teams will have done, just because it's their home race. And we now know that Hamilton has a grid penalty for Monza. And I think, Matt, I think you agree with me that this is horrible. So something happens before the race. It was then not penalised at the time, but we will investigate this after the race. No action taken that affects his Dutch Grand Prix, but for his first home Grand Prix for Ferrari, his first Monza Grand Prix in red for Ferrari, he will start with a 5-second grid penalty for something that happened before the start of the Dutch Grand Prix. I am incandescent with rage. I think that is so close to looking suspiciously vindictive and deliberate that it may as well be. Like, I think it's so hard to defend that isn't in some way motivated. It looks horrible. Now, tell me I'm a tin foil, what's it? And that I'm crazy. Call me mad. I don't mind. But it just looks so on the nose. Like, what could you do to hurt Hamilton more than anything in his move to Ferrari? Just completely cripple his start before the weekend has even started.
I mean, if he gets pole position, he's still starting 6th.
Oh,
that's not so bad.
He won't. He won't get pole position. He'll get P7 or P8.
Yeah, this was a double yellow flag infringement that happened during the reconnaissance laps.
Yeah.
And he slowed 20 kilometers per hour, but they didn't consider that to be significant slowing for the double yellows they displayed during a reconnaissance laps. Because, in the reconnaissance laps, you can't go down the straight because that's where all the people and the equipment are. So you have to go travel through the pit lane. He felt he slowed enough. They said he didn't, and they gave him a 5 grid spot penalty. But if there's a bright spot about that, there's zero pressure on him now in his home Grand Prix. Like he can just literally do whatever. Nothing's going to matter because it's already been ruined. And sometimes
that's like, oh, your wife cheated on you. But on the plus side, you don't have to worry about maintaining a stable home life anymore because she's gone. She's got the milkman's run off with her. That's not a consolation at all.
I did my best and trying to put a positive spin on it. He'll have less pressure, so maybe he'll be able to find a better performance. I don't know.
Nope.
But yeah, it's an odd one. It really is. I don't think I've ever seen this.
No,
Jules?
It's weird.
Thing is, the final sector, final turn at Zandvoort is a pretty particular type of corner. It's banked, it's got a lot of speed, and therefore, given the nature of this track, as the FIA formulated it, they decided to have a double waved yellow situation there. And that requires all the drivers who were informed of this prior to the Sunday, require them to significantly reduce their speed. And Hamilton failed to do this. He had, I think, 10 to 20% less throttle than during his practice runs. And at those kind of speeds, and given Zandvoort is a pretty tiny track, so before you know it, you're already hitting the people on the grid preparing for the start. Pit lane, small, busy. I understand why they did this. And the reason it took them so long, which is a shame, of course, but is that they wanted to check their own telemetry and data.
I didn't buy it, Jules. I didn't buy it.
It's true. And they even asked Ferrari to provide theirs and to provide their team radio communications. And somehow it took them all of the race. And
No, hang on. No, wait. Before the race, they said it will be investigated after the race. So
True.
It wasn't that it took that amount of time.
Yeah.
But they've got to cut this out, because like it's too open to criticism when you go, we'll decide after the race, and you go, well, you'll decide after the race to see what effect it has. And it might not just be because, we want to favour one driver or the other. It might be what's the outcome that is the least controversial. So they might go, if we enforce the penalty we were going to, it affects the race winner and everyone will yell at us. Fine. Let's do a fine. And you go, so like, we had Piastri hit George Russell in the pit lane. And you go, that kind of incident, he swerved to the right, then he went to the left and he hit Russell. And you go, we've seen drivers penalised with that and given them racing consequences for things that happened in the pit lane. But that's the championship battle. So we'll do a fine. I can see why they would do that. What did George Russell get for sideswiping Fernando Alonso on pit entry? Was that a penalty? But for Lewis Hamilton, he broke earlier. He slowed down, but they're saying he broke not enough and didn't slow down enough. And then the penalty is not even for that event. It's for the next event. That's his home Grand Prix, his debut home Grand Prix for Ferrari. To me, it makes me mad, and it makes me seem mad, and I probably am mad, but I don't like it.
And you're fully in your right, and whether you're a Hamilton fan or not,
I'm neutral, Jules.
Of course you're very neutral, but it seems harsh, whoever it would be, because what are we talking about exactly? I mean, I think what I was trying to argue is that you penalize this in a way. I think that's very, very understandable. They have a very fair point, but does it need to be this? I mean, you can award penalty points, you can fine a driver, but in this case, not alone is the penalty pretty harsh, but also the sentimental bit about Hamilton going to Italy for the first time in a Ferrari, and then also, it just...
A Zandvoort penalty, I would have accepted that. I would have accepted a penalty for this weekend.
Yeah, but and then, I mean, this guy, I just read, it was 51 races without any type of penalty for him. And when it happens, of course, it's like this. It just suits his season with Ferrari, doesn't it?
Matt.
Rain, pour, etc. No, I mean, so just to understand Jules clearly, it was wave double yellows. He entered the sector already going 20 kilometers an hour slower than he did in practice. His throttle was 10 to 20% less than it was in practice, and he braked 70 meters early, which is a lot in Formula One terms. But they didn't consider that significant. Yeah. And then they didn't figure it out till after the race. So they couldn't penalize him for this race. It had to be for the next race. I'm with Spanners on this one. Like it's a bad look, even if it's entirely justified. But also I'm going to ask a question. Is this because of what happened to Behrman in Silverstone? Have they just suddenly decided to make everybody slow down that little bit extra so you don't get some craziness in the pit lane?
Yeah, in the FIA's defense and stewards' defense, double waved yellows there's an immediate danger and you're meant to be prepared to stop. But this one seems like it was more procedural, like we've decided this in advance. So then why didn't they just say, right, well, then there's a speed limit. You have to be at this specific speed rather than, as Mark says in our Patreon chat, patreon.com/Missed Apex, he was saying, well, we see drivers lift a little to show that they've slowed down. Normally that's for a yellow flag. I think wave double yellow is specific. I would argue then that if you are saying before the session, because of the track layout and because there are people on track, we're going to have a speed limit or a procedure, I think don't have a normal racing symbol and then arbitrarily afterwards go, no, we actually meant slower than that because they didn't decide it in advance. I think also there's the rule now where your penalty carries over if you don't serve it during the race. I think that's being done away with also. So that further kind of says, look, if it's a Zandvoort thing, you should serve your penalty in Zandvoort. Sorry, Jules, before we move on, you had a point?
Well, to add to what Matt just said, it just feels very arbitrary because they state that the 10 to 20% speed less throttle, it doesn't sound very specific. Yeah. And then they state that they find that not significantly enough, and that the reduced speed wasn't at a great amount of kilometers, and it just feels not very specific and arbitrary. I mean, what is significant or significant enough? And that just makes the whole thing a bit, dodgy.
Yeah, but again, if you want to accuse me of getting specifically angry about that because I'm a Hamilton fan, I think that is probably fair as well. And so that was an unexpectedly important Zandvoort Grand Prix. If you're sitting here as a Piastri fan, then I think you can go to bed and you can go into the week and look forward to Monza pretty confident that actually your driver has the championship to lose now. And I think we'd said it maybe a few races back. People were saying, with that lead, it's his to lose. But we could see Lando Norris chipping away. And in a battle of attrition, I think I was perfectly happy to say that in this battle of attrition, I think Norris could have won 4 races out of 5 or 3 races out of 4 and won enough over the course of 10 races to be ahead by the time we got to Abu Dhabi. But with something like this, that is essentially 5 races worth of 1-2 victories, of being number 1 ahead of the other one in number 2, it really does look like now this is Piastri's to stroke home. And the more it's even between them as the season goes on. So now over the next 4 or 5 races, let's say the next 6 races are 3 each, we are going to be going into the final 3 races with Piastri only having to cruise in behind Lando Norris in second place. So there will be a very interesting dynamic. Does Lando Norris recover enough to come back and go, right, 0-0, reset. The championship is far from mathematically over. All I can do is turn up on a Grand Prix weekend and qualify on pole and go and win that race. And that's the chance he has now, is to go ahead and do that. But the way the dynamics between those two is it's close enough that Norris could be dominating and could be doing well, but every other race or every 3rd race or every 4th race, Piastri's going to pick up that pole and he's going to pick up that win. Or there'll be a bit of bad luck one way or the other. And right now, that is all Piastri needs. Norris could be better than Piastri for the rest of the season, and Piastri just has to nick a couple of results. So Piastri fans can go to bed, I think, relatively confident. And I think if you're a Norris fan, take the week to grieve. Take the week off. I'm saying this to all your bosses. Say Spanners says it's okay. You can go and have a week off. Go and reflect, because it's been a hard weekend. And it's not his fault. And it's just a horrible bit of luck. And you have to go away. And I hope you come back from it going, well, that's sport. That is sport all up and down. You get bad breaks. And in fact, that was my reaction after Abu Dhabi 2021. And I got berated for it in the Missed Apex chat. I said, yeah, you get bad calls. Yeah, you get bad luck. It's sport. It happens that way. And although I'm now painting this picture that Piastri has all but won the driver's title, actually, the other thing about sport is there's still a long way to go and a lot can happen. So let's give out some awards. Let's start with the negative award so we can end on the positive. Let's go for the Missed Apex Award.
Oh no, you missed the Apex.
So Jules Sagers. Hey, Jules. I know the main thing I say about you is that you're Dutch and that you live in a windmill and you live on a diet primarily made up of daffodils. But also, you are a co-host on our Missed Apex MotoGP pod. And as much as you know about F1, you know a lot about MotoGP. You and Carl have done a fantastic job over there. We need to link to that in the show notes because you guys are building up I don't want to say surprising following, Jules, because that would be insulting. But I just didn't realize that many people were into MotoGP. You guys have got a proper audience, from the Missed Apex community and beyond.
Yeah, we're very grateful for that, and also helped by a couple of great seasons in recent years with very interesting title fights. And if you're vaguely interested or very interested, give it a try. And if you want to get into it, we have a special episode recorded for people who want to get into it.
Yeah, like a primer.
Basics.
Yeah, here's how to watch MotoGP. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel very welcome to give it a shot.
Cool. We'll link to all those in the show notes below. Jules, who missed the Apex for you?
The rider who did not hit the fox crossing the track, and I think it was Charles Leclerc.
The rider? Driver. At the very least, pilito. That's
immediately got into MotoGP spheres.
Say that whole sentence again, but in Dutch.
De vos die het circuit overstak en de coureur die de vos niet raakte.
Proost to that. Proost?
Yeah.
Proost.
So
okay.
it's a positive missing the Apex.
There you go. Go and follow Jules as well. He's at Jules Sagers F1, but you don't have to worry about spelling it. All those notes are in the show notes. We've got Matt Two Rumpets here as well. Matt, you go, I'm going to drink whiskey in a bar and play my trumpet. Do you want to come and see it? Is there one of those that you're plugging or no?
Just last Friday, I had one. I do not have another one at the moment on the books, or if I do, it's like months away. So I'll let you know.
Hey, Matt, I might be thinking about going to Coda. If I can hook it up, we might have a deal.
Coda?
We might have a deal, Coda. Austin Grand Prix.
Okay.
It's in the works.
Right.
Just looking for a signature and some agreement and for some people to tell me that I'm not crazy. But if we're there, you coming?
Yeah, I can make that work.
Well, and we'll invite the Missed Apex people to come as well. So just a little teaser that we might be coming to Circuit of the Americas and doing an event on the Saturday. But if you're not interested in that, go and follow Matt at MattPT55 everywhere. Matt, who missed the Apex for you?
This is kind of a tough one. I'm torn because I have two teams that have really disappointed me, and some people on those teams. And I'm going to have to settle with ultimately Sauber. They've been doing so good. I've been so impressed with them, and just from the very first lap, it all went pear-shaped for them. And yeah, come on, guys! You would convince me you had a thing; it was gonna work, and we get to the first race after the summer break, and you make me look like I don't know what I'm talking about, even more than usual.
Bortoletto had a horrible start. I think he lost
really
six places.
He did. He had a clutch issue, so he immediately got chunked to the back. But then he doubled down on that by arguing with Stroll about an Apex, and that's never going to work out in your favor, I don't think.
I saw that incident a couple of times, and I couldn't figure out whose fault it is. Does anyone have a strong opinion on whose fault that was?
No, but yeah, no, it's sad because they'd been doing so well, and I was hoping they would be able to build on that.
No, fair enough.
Broke my little heart.
So my Missed Apex award goes to... Wait, Spanners, you haven't said how we should follow you or whatever. Oh, well, I'm at Spanners Ready on everything, at Missed Apex F1 on TikTok, Spanners Ready on Instagram. I am getting better at posting there. Come and hang out. I do love the comments that I get when I post pictures of my stupid mug doing whatever I'm doing on Blue Sky as well, Spanners Ready. But also, I think I want to go to Monza, right? So my family hate having me around for my birthday because they're always busy around September time, early September. And so when I said, I might just get a ticket to Milan and then go to Monza, they seemed relieved that I wouldn't be around to complain. So every now and then people say, I've got a spare ticket to such and such a Grand Prix. Would you like to come? And I've never been able to take anyone up on that offer. So I'm leaving it down to the universe now. If you're going to Monza and you happen to have a spare ticket for the Friday and the Saturday, because I'll have to come home on the Sunday, I'd love to spend my birthday going to a bucket list track of Monza for qualifying. So if you happen to have a ticket or you are a corporate sponsor and you want Spanners to hang around on Friday and Saturday, the unglamorous days, then I'll leave it to the universe. If one of those opportunities comes up, I'm heading to Milan. But my Missed Apex award, sorry, it's going to go to Hamilton. I know I said I was furious about the result, but at the end of the day, Lewis Hamilton did the bad thing before the race that has already forfeited his Monza race. And also, it is driver error to go up onto the paint when, this is really harsh, the rain was just starting to come down, but instinctively, the drivers did seem to in that moment go, oh yeah, no. Obviously, as the rain came down, it's wet, it's going to cause problems. And again, for Hamilton, he said, the car, he often complains about the car being twitchy. It did look like the rear went. And then in the act of collecting it up, it then went the other way, but it's still driver error. So, I think Lewis Hamilton threw away his weekend where he's been performing generally better than his Ferrari career so far. Threw away that result and also threw away the chance at a good grid position in his first home Grand Prix. So, unfortunately, Lewis Hamilton does have to get that Missed Apex award for me. But please, if you're Hamfosi, forgive me. I am normally faithful. I have his hat on my wall and I wore it on a beach full of Dutch people all week. Okay, so I've earned this. But if you are not put off by me saying that, do consider supporting Missed Apex on Patreon, patreon.com/Missed Apex. Come and join us in our Discord. It's not just for the live stream. It is a lovely, wonderful community in there. Now, let's be all positive. All right, Jules, who hit the apex for you?
I never, ever thought I was going to be able to say this, but Lance Stroll.
What? Oh, actually, He started in the pit lane. He started last.
Not in the pit lane, but dead last. And that was after he binned his car, not once, but twice.
Okay,
on Friday and Saturday.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but then, like he sometimes does, magically lays down a drive, a race. They think, okay, this guy belongs here, and he did, and he finished 7th in the points. And
that's good. It's good.
Even in front of his frustrated teammate. So I think give the guy a break. Give him my Missed Apex award.
Jules, one of my pet hates with Stroll is he'll have like a dozen races where he just does nothing. And then he'll have a race like this where things are, mixed up and he'll creep up the thing and finish 6th or 7th. And the Stroll fans come out of the woodwork and they go, see, you doubter, you've been wrong all this time. I'm like, no, I haven't. Statistically, you should accidentally have a race like today. And he was sort of thrown out of sync with everyone with that incident with Bortoletto. And so the safety car kind of benefited him as well. Like, I don't know.
To be fair, he did a Stroll thing. Like first, having that collision with Bortoletto losing part of his front wing. And like from the 22 riders on track, the only one to hit that debris was Lance Stroll, of course. But then after that, he went on to finish in the points. So fair play to him.
Maria in the live chat went, oh, Jules is so kind. You are kind. You're a kind man. Matt Trumpets, who hit the apex for you?
I can't believe you've let me pick before you because there are many worthy of mention. However, there's no overlooking Isaac Hadjar. Just absolutely, what young person who wants to be a Formula One driver doesn't dream of getting 3rd at the Dutch Grand Prix?
Oh my God, honestly. Guido van der Garde in the podium interviews. Did you ever imagine that you might be here on the podium? Yes, Guido. constantly. It's literally a lifetime's amount of work to get here. Yes, of course.
It was hilarious. I was just like, this is what comes of you. You drove a Formula One car once. Here, have a microphone. Go talk to that person on TV.
And obviously, this is not a go and rinse Guido van der Garde thing. However, if you watch it back, that interview, he said, and in third place, and he looked down at the card and went, Isaac Haijar. I was like, okay, fair enough. I get that's not who you were expecting to talk to.
No, but he's been promising this all season long. Not necessarily a podium per se, because that did take some intervention from forces beyond his control. But he was legitimately going to finish fourth place no matter what happened, and that is pretty impressive.
Okay, well,
that's very impressive driving. So yeah, chapeau, nicely done.
And my Hit the Apex award goes to George Russell. After all of that, after all the chaos with a big chunk out of his car, he finished P4, right? P4 yep. After all that. And that meme of George Russell does nothing, finishes P3 or P4 or whatever. Well, today he put in a really good shift, really consistent, and was able to put a hex on his enemies. So my advice to F1 drivers would be don't mess with George Russell. It does appear like he has powers of telekinesis, or perhaps he can draw the spirits of other, of racing drivers long gone to exact his will on drivers, because everyone around him today befell an ill fate. But yeah, I think George Russell put in a great shift today. So we have got a couple of shows coming up. I think we're gonna try and catch up with Mike Caulfield to get some strategist insight over the last few races and look forward to what we can expect in the next few. We're also going to do a race preview, I think, with a new friend and Chris. I know we're benching Matt, but Matt will be back for the Monza Grand Prix, where me and Van Gien can commiserate on what I'm sure already looks like being another miserable Lewis Hamilton weekend. So look forward to that, guys. Until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast.